We like to think that we're rational people, that we make decisions based on facts, but in fact, we're emotional people.
Hey, welcome to Soul in the Game podcast. In this episode, we are having a very special guest, perfect for our Earth Month. He is the Executive Director of Arizona Interfaith Power and Light, that is AZIPL. It's a national organization called Interfaith Power and Light. They work on advocating for policy changes which are pro-environment and also elect leaders who can bring positive changes in our environmental policies and also educate our citizens by working with religious organizations across US. I'm very excited to talk today with Doug. Stay tuned. Oh, before I go, just a small note, that is, the audio quality of this recorded episode is a bit of not a good quality due to the Zoom issues I had on the day of recording. I apologize in advance for any inconvenience on this.
Hi, Soumya.
Hey Doug, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the podcast. And I had been thinking of talking to you because I feel you have, among many of the people I've met, you have kind of dedicated your life to working on climate change and bringing all the people, especially in the spiritual community, not just Christians, all other communities as well, bringing them together and giving voice in a way of storytelling to bring out the love for our earth. So, can you talk about what AZIPL is and start from there? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So AZIPL stands for Arizona Interfaith Power and Light. And it started out about 21, 22 years ago in California. It was at that time Episcopal Power and Light. And they had some grants that allowed them to help Episcopal churches install solar energy at their church facility. And then it grew both in its scope and membership, so that today we've got 40 state affiliates across the country, and Arizona is one of those. And it's concerned with solar energy, but much more broadly concerned about environmental issues and connecting ecology and theology together. And I really like the idea that it is both concerned about protecting and preserving the earth, and also takes a spiritual perspective. So a few months ago, the tagline we used was a religious response to climate change. And then we changed it to a spiritual response to the climate crisis, because we felt so many of our partners are not necessarily a part of an established Orthodox religious tradition, but consider themselves deeply spiritual. So we wanted to include them. And we didn't think climate change was a strong enough word, so we changed it to climate crisis to express some of the danger that we face. You're on mute now.
Thank you. So, climate crisis. What made change the term to crisis from change? What's the difference?
Well, I think change is just kind of an innocuous word. Change can be bad, change can be good. So it doesn't express the danger and the seriousness of the climate warming in such a way that sea level rises and species go extinct, and we have a deeper disconnect between human beings and the rest of the natural world. So, crisis is a better, more potent word than change is.
Yeah, I used to wonder about climate change, and I think it makes sense with the word crisis, and it has this urgency. When you hear crisis, it feels more urgent than climate change didn't feel like urgent. And if we think if we don't think about it, if it's climate always changes, there's nothing wrong with climate change, but climate crisis gives us more urgent and we need to do something right now kind of
Yeah.
message.
Yeah, I hear people dismiss it. You know, the climate is always changing, as you say, and so we don't need to worry about it. But it's changing in a way that is really threatening the life as we know it on Earth.
Right, right. So it all started with solar energy in California, right? That's where the headquarters is for
Correct.
the
Correct.
IPL is Interfaith Power and Light, and AZ is Arizona's branch of IPL. So AZIPL, do we have same branches, as in same projects, or can you talk about few of the projects that AZIPL is working on for for
Yeah.
working on climate crisis? Yeah.
The most recent one that we did yesterday at Environmental Day at the legislature was inviting people to write love letters to the earth. And we did that because we think that people work to protect what they love. And if they don't love something, then we're more inclined just to ignore it and go on with our lives. So we're one of the things I said in introducing it was that it's been said to stay spiritually alive, you should fall in love at least 3 times a day. And so there are all kinds of wonderful expressions in the universe, you know, from a sunrise to a cactus wren to a sparkling desert spring to distant stars and planets and, you know, all kinds of things that we might fall in love with. And we like to think that we're rational people, that we make decisions based on facts. But in fact, we're emotional people, and so, if we can tap into people's emotions, that has much more power. And we're also tribal people. So, we are inclined to think and act not just as individuals, but as a member of a tribe or a community. And so, the love letters are a way to connect us in a deeper way with those subjects and people in the world that we love. So that was the most recent one. And we do a lot of work with renewable energy. So we try to help congregations and residences find ways to put solar power on their roof or in the parking shade structure. We testify at the Corporation Commission, which is the body in Arizona that makes important decisions about uh, energy and rate paying costs to ratepayers. And set standards for what percentage should be renewable energy as opposed to fossil fuels. Food is another area. What 20% of our carbon footprint is made up of our diet. So mostly because food gets transported so far to arrive at our table. and lots of fossil fuels are involved in the fertilization and pesticides and herbicides are usually fossil fuel based as well. So food is important expression of how we live on the earth. And then environmental justice has been increasingly important for us. We're beginning to recognize that we can't just hug trees and forget people, that they're very much related to each other. And the what we call intersectionality between racial justice and environmental justice is crucial.
Right. Nice. So I think I'm more aware of all the recent projects that after I joined in almost at 2019 mid, I think, and more focused on the managing the IT side. But the real work, which is talking to people who are actually working in Congress, or going to people's homes and to help with solar panel, or putting up the in both in residential and commercial. So is that with the fees or with is it free? The For example, solar panels, right? Is that free? Something free that AZIPL is providing consultation?
Yeah. Mostly what we do, we don't have a grant that helps people pay for installing solar on their house or their houses of worship. Mostly we consult and advise, um, and we work with an organization called Solar United Neighbors that helps a neighborhood that might want to join together and take advantage of bulk ordering and negotiation with a solar installer. So a residence might be in a neighborhood might be able to get a cheaper price by going in together on ordering solar panels and negotiating with a solar installer. So we help make that happen.
Awesome. And do they have to be a member of IPL, or is it accessible for everybody else?
No, it's accessible for other people.
That's nice. Nice. I probably can put a link for the website so people can come in and check on that.
Yeah.
The next one I have for you is going into, you mentioned about Environmental Day celebration, which happened yesterday, and writing poems that reflect their connection, people's connection with the earth. And I liked what you said. People work to protect what they love. People work to protect. So that's the key word there, right? We have to put in effort to protect what we love. And the expression of that is in poems. We saw Amanda Gordon giving such a beautiful speech in Biden's inauguration. And that, I think, also inspires so many people who have lost touch with the poem writing. But as I know you, you've always been into storytelling and poem writing. So how did you get into that? Like, is that you've always fascinated with, or is it something that came with the love?
Yeah, I remember being in seminary. I was in what I call the bowels of the library, studying these dusty old tomes about how to communicate. And then I left on a break to go up to the quadrangle, and it was a spring day, and the tulip blossoms were out, and the magnolia trees were in flower. And in the middle of the grass, there was a guy who had a circle of people around him, and his name was Ken Fight, and he was just telling stories, and people were mesmerized by these stories that he was telling. And I found out later he called himself an itinerant fool. And he just traveled all over the world telling stories. And I thought to myself, my goodness, I've been trying to discover this mode of communication in the library down in these dusty books. And that language just comes alive when people tell narratives. So that was my first interest in storytelling. And then I got involved in the National Storytelling Organization. Every October, they have a festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee, and they have about 6 circus tents that they set up. And all weekend long, the first week in October, you travel from one circus tent to another, listening to great storytellers from all over the world. And then at night, you go out to the Jonesboro graveyard and you hear ghost stories. And then at midnight, you hear what they call midnight cabaret, which was adult stories. And then I started teaching eventually at South Mountain Community College Storytelling Institute. And one of the things we say is you can't hate someone whose story that you know. And the shortest distance between two people is always a story. So it's a way to connect people with each other. It's a way to express the most important values that we hold. It's a way to educate people. Um, so storytelling is a mode of communication that doesn't just use the head, but also uses the heart and the emotions as well. So those are some of the things that I really value about storytelling.
Yeah, Doug. It's an inspiration. Whenever I listen to you, it feels like, oh, I should listen to more stories. And the way you told about storytelling, the story itself was good. How you got into this storytelling part, I think, and it always reminds me of our grandparents who gave us or passed down the knowledge from one generation to next generation, and it was all through storytelling, just storytelling. We didn't have these amazing technologies back then. And yeah, now we are more on the data side, data analytics, measurement, numbers, and it's very easy to get lost in those. But we have to have the storytelling, that connection to the emotional feeling part of human being. So
Yeah.
important.
I think electronic media is so beneficial in lots of ways. The internet is a wonderful gift, but it's very impersonal and distant. And people are hungry for face to face connection with people that storytelling allows. And even telling stories digitally um, is better than just listening to the facts or the dry data. We say that people will never die for a pie chart, but they might give their lives for a compelling story that really gives life meaning and purpose.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I think, Martin Luther King's speech that I was recently listening to, the stories and pie charts comparison. Next, I want to go into your work as a you as a in terms of spirituality, right? So you said earlier that it was the tagline for IPL changed from religious response to spiritual response. So how do we connect the religion part or the spiritual part, or if you prefer to stick to more spiritual part, word terminology, how do we connect that to act of climate, working on climate crisis? What's the connection there? Because we could still be working as a scientist, and I may not never go to church or temple, but why is it necessary, being a spiritual person, we still have to work on climate crisis?
Yeah, I think if you come at this from a religious perspective, whether you're Hindu or Jewish or indigenous or Christian, all of those great traditions have a connection with the earth and grow out of the earth and have creation stories that are designed to try to connect people with the wider natural world. And there's almost always a charge in those religious traditions to care for the earth. So Adam and Eve get put in the Garden of Eden and are charged by God to till and to keep, to tend and to mend. Um, so it's a beautiful language that is used as a way to connect people with the wider natural world in a way that we've become disconnected from. So that's part of it. And then I just know from personal experience that that I feel closer to the holy when I'm connected with the natural world. So especially during the pandemic, one of the life-saving things has been to go for walks around the lake that is not too far from our house, or to go camping or backpacking. And I feel closer to God, or whatever language you might use for the divine, when I'm in the natural world. And then to see the world being desecrated in the way that it is by pollution, by encroachment of human civilization on habitats that are endangering the lives of many species of animals. They say that we're in the sixth great extinction, and this time human beings are the primary geological force that is destroying the earth. So you go from being a caretaker to being a generation and a species that is destroying the earth. And the disconnect is so obvious that it really gives us a charge to turn around and to take care of the earth that we're right now destroying.
Yeah. And Doug, how would we create it? Almost brings in fear or anxiousness, right? So, and spirituality also helps us to heal and to calm down or bring us to make meditate. As I think of climate crisis, and whenever I think of all the actions we are doing, and especially things which were out of control, because policies, we are not writing the policies, we cannot change the policies. And that's what I like a lot about AZIPL, working to also change the policies. As a person who is into spirituality and trying to work on climate issues, anxiety, as I was also in ASU studying, doing my master's degree. ASU, many of our students, we went through anxiety because we were hearing all these stories, how things can get bad, like how we are all destroying. And I think spirituality or religion here has a bigger role to help humans to heal and to come out of that anxiety. So do you think we can use, or not use, but we can involve ourselves into this spiritual world to also come out of the same anxiety? It's like using it to both address the issue and at the same time also calm ourselves down. What do you what do you think? I don't know if I'm making sense, but what do you think?
Yeah,
Is
I think yesterday at the Environmental Day at the legislature, I was reflecting on what motivates me and what motivates other people to do the work of climate justice. And sometimes it's not always very positive motivation or positive emotions. It's fear,
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it is anger,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's even hatred. And some of those negative emotions, for example, anger. I think there's such a thing as righteous anger. And yet, if that's your only motivation, it really eats away at your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need a more positive emotion. And spirituality and religion has always taught that love is the most powerful force in the world. I quoted Martin Luther King Jr. saying that darkness can't chase out darkness, only light can do that. And hate can't chase out hate, only love can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to tap into that power that is the most transcendent and powerful, and that is the power of love. And ultimately, it's all about relationships. We're not atomized individuals meant to live separate from each other. We're connected with each other. And we share many of the same genetic material, for example, that other species do. Some people don't like the idea that we share DNA with chimpanzees, or the apes, our closest relatives. But we share lots of genetic material with the banana, so we need to get over it. we're we're deeply, deeply connected with each other.
Right, right. I like the example, banana example. It's it when you have a banana and yourself, you develop that appreciation. Okay, it's the same. We are the same. uh, yeah, I think that will help. That perspective will help bring the protection part, and make us active, more active in terms of climate crisis change. So next I want to ask is, let's say, if there's some religious organization, for example, one of the temples, Hindu temples, and we are not part of AZIPL. What are the steps? Like, how would I convince them, or what are the points that I can let them know that it's important to be part of this community, or part of this momentum? It doesn't have to be necessarily ACIPL, but I still think in climate crisis, or working towards climate crisis, why is that important for a religious organization who is not part of it yet? How do we convince them? That's I think the right word.
Uh-huh. Well, you could speak much more articulately to the rationale within Hinduism about why you should care for the earth. But certainly, Mahatma Gandhi, for example, uh, a great peacemaker, uh, taught about peace not just between human and human, but human and the rest of the world. So you would want to couch your language of appeal to the people in your temple from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the richness of cooperating with other people from other faith traditions is just a rich and wonderful thing to be involved in. I always think about that great story about what does an elephant look like, and the blind men are trying to feel it, and one feels the trunk and says, well, an elephant is like a tree, and another feels the tail and says, no, 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 you're wrong. The elephant is like a rope, and somebody feels the ear and says, no, an elephant is like a great palm leaf. So they've all got their different perspectives. And when we come together and share those perspectives, we get a bigger picture of what the divine might be. None of us have the whole picture of what God might be. But if we join together and listen to each other, we can learn from each other. And then also, we learn from the earth. That elephant teaches us something, and the water that is so essential to life teaches us, especially here in the desert, about how contingent life is and how dependent we are on the gifts of the universe, water and breathable air. And that's the common ground that brings us together in a transcendent way, beyond our different political affiliations and beyond
Mhm.
our different religious perspectives. The earth is the common ground that might bring us together.
Right, and that I can totally relate to that, because when we are, for example, doing our religious ceremonies, we have in Sanskrit, we have so many mantras that we chant, and many of them goes back to the earth. They're all referring to the earth, and they all have a meaning that is part of earth. And we don't all understand the language Sanskrit, which is more like Latin here, right? We don't really understand, but whenever we do, I think the stories, the mythological stories, help to bring that message out, and we focus on the, or to understand that first level, we are focusing more on the only things that we understand, but we go deeper into it, and then we get the second layer or the third layer meaning that is behind the story that we just see on the top level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be surprising for us, people who come from the earth. Just like there are rivers, we have, rivers in our body, uh, veins and arteries that
Yeah.
carry
Yeah.
liquid about, and and you know, we've got the same proportion in our bloodstream of salt that there is in the ocean. So
Wow.
there's so many ways that we are an expression of the earth.
Yeah, wow, so nice. I think when I do yoga, we do end of the yoga, we do shavasana, and then for that, they always go through this the reminders that our body is filled with water that is running like rivers, and they take river names as well, and we have chanting which takes the names of all the rivers, and that brings me back to thinking we are actually thanking the rivers and thanking the nature than actually getting attached to the mantra itself, or saying, oh, I belong to this religion tightly. But the hidden meaning behind that, we are appreciating the nature instead of taking the side track of getting too attached to the religion itself. So to your point, I think we are all giving the same message, and trying to hold on to the to the religion part, which I think we have the emotion to that, um, but the message is the same across all religions, is to
Yeah.
protect and take care.
I don't know that much about yoga. I did Bikram yoga for a while,
Oh, you
you know,
did? Wow.
hot yoga, hoping that one day I would become more flexible, but it never worked for me. I'm just as stiff as ever. But I
Oh,
remember tree poses,
yeah.
downward dog,
Yes.
all those expressions that connect us with the wider world through yoga. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and they're all translating Sanskrit as well, same words. How long did you do your yoga, Doug?
Just over a year.
Wow, that's awesome. You stuck with Bikram yoga. It's pretty hard. We are just starting with Bikram yoga.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. All right, I think we did about 42 minutes now. We can end soon. We are almost approaching the end. Before we end, I would like to ask you your um, pastor, right? You were a pastor at the church, community church in Tempe,
Correct.
and right, and your journey there as leading the green team. I know you there. You helped installing solar panels there and converting the church from normal to more of a green church. And you have a uh, I forget the term where we come and say our sins, talk about our sins in that green box, green sin box. Yeah, can you talk about that journey? Share that story with us, please.
Yeah, that was such an important part for me personally to connect my faith and my care for the earth. And it was often something that got expressed in sermons. And and I remember a young person in the church. She was only, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. And one day she was trying to express to the congregation, we should care more for the animals. And and everybody said, yeah, we should care more for the animals. And I'm thinking, I've been saying this for 20 years at this church, and you don't listen to me, but now Maya comes up and says it, and you listen to her. And somebody else said, yeah, we should care more for the earth and the animals. We should form a green team. And I thought, and everybody says, yeah, we should form a green team. And I thought, I've been saying this for years, and you didn't listen to me, but now, so maybe it was like little seeds that got planted on the way, and eventually they grow into something. And now they've actually got a better, stronger green team doing good things than they did when I was there. So, yeah,
That's
the importance of
amazing.
planting seeds, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. There's always work that needs to keep going, right? So you help start it, and then I think it took shape and developed into something more important.
Yeah. It's a good lesson too to think that you never know what impact you might be having. You just keep doing the work, and who knows what might develop from it.
Yeah, yeah. True, Doug. Thank you so much for taking your time to talk about, your journey in this and your contribution. And I really appreciate all the hard work you do with collaborating with almost the whole US, different time zones and different people, different faiths, and your excellent people skill. You're amazing listener. Whenever I talk to you, I always ponder about how good you're listening. You're so patient. Always you listen completely and then you remember to talk slowly, patiently. So those are like takeaways for me. You're very good inspiration for me in those terms. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. You've been such an addition to my life and the work of AZIPL. So it's good to partner with you.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. I'll stop the recording and hope you enjoyed this production from Soul in the Game podcast. If you have any feedback, please reach out to me on Anchor messages. You can leave voice message at Anchor about this podcast, or you can leave comments on YouTube, Facebook, or me on Instagram. Until then, take care.